conversation, a little more action, please. All this aggravation ain't satisfaction in me. A little more plan, a little less fun. A little less plan, a little more spark. Close your mouth and open up your heart and baby, satisfy me. Satisfy me.
Welcome back to Declare Your Independence with me, Ernest Hancock, here in Phoenix, Arizona, from the beautiful studios of Freedoms with an S, freedomsphoenix.com. On the line with us, we have Dr. John Walsh from Massachusetts, and I'm just wanting to make sure that we emphasize how important this project is, because I don't remember I'm sure in history there might be. I'm not aware of any time that there has ever been such a wide voluntary association in a book. I'm holding it up for the camera here. All right, take a look at this. Okay, comehomeamerica.us. And this has been a compilation of a lot of articles by individuals making the case in several categories, and some people have contributed even more than once, but it basically is, the case against war. And it's amazing to me that you got to make a case against war as detailed as this. And really what it does is it shows how many people from how many wide perspectives are against war. Well, who's for it? And why are they for it? Where's the book for this? And I'll tell you, Doctor, I remember in the early stages of this where I first saw the first book in a case for war. And it came from the Just War Doctrine. And it was a book that was distributed throughout all the churches. Now, Charles Goyette, as he was doing his radio show and I was producing for him, we were on the Air America affiliate here. And we took the time and went to a friend of mine that was a Bible study leader in a local church, that he was conducting these actual classes. They had the book. It was like a 12-week program. I mean, it was amazing how long this was, that they were walking through using Christian doctrine. You weren't even supposed to. It was very important. You're not allowed to ask questions until the end of the study. So what they did, they were indoctrinating an entire generation of people of faith into why it's so important that we go kill Muslims. And we sat there and listened to this and just couldn't believe it. There was actually, the only time I've seen any kind of publication, even a curriculum to people that are supposed to be of peace, of, being good Christians, of the argument for war. Now, other than that, are you aware of any other indoctrination, certainly in printed form, that is advocating war? I'm not. Are you?
Well, I grew up as a very, very serious Catholic. I nearly became a Jesuit priest, and I'm not a Catholic anymore. But I remember being taught about just war, and the arguments were always very convoluted. And I even remember, because I'm old enough to have been involved in this, I remember having religious leaders tell me it was my duty to go and fight in Vietnam. I could never understand how that was a just war. I'm not a pacifist. I do think there are times when people have to defend themselves. I mean, for example, if somebody invaded our country and was going to threaten my home and my family and my loved ones, I do have the right, and we have the right under international law to defend ourselves. But for me, that's about, and also we have the right to have revolutions and throw off oppressors if that's the only way out. Those two things, yes, but to attack another country when we haven't been attacked, I'm afraid not, and it always ends up badly. So there are people, there have always been people who made money on war. Since the ancient Greeks, there were Athenians making a bundle off war and selling things to armies when they needed them, and that we have the military-industrial complex today. But Walter Jones, if I have his name right, lives in an area Walter Jones is a congressman. His congressional district, I believe, has the highest level of military spending in the United States. And yet, he's very solidly against war now. So even if you have the military-industrial complex, that's not omnipotent. That's not all decisive. You can have a very powerful military-industrial complex and yet have people and representatives against war. We have that in Massachusetts. We have a lot of defense spending here, but we have a population that's pretty anti-war. Now, unfortunately, when it comes to giving General Electric an extra contract, people have second thoughts. But in general, I think that the military-industrial complex might not be the power that we think it is. It might be a paper tiger, maybe not so strong as we think. And also, I'm very struck by, again, that in terms of getting contributions from military personnel, I believe Ron Paul gets by far and away the most. So certainly the grunts, I don't know where the brass seem to be willing to go to war if they have to advance their careers. But the grunts clearly don't like it because they're making contributions to Ron Paul.
Well, all these points that you bring up just kind of, really begs the question that I keep having. Who are we up against? You make a good point. People even in strong defense spending districts are against war at a visceral level. You have Generation Next. You would think a lot of them are against it. The troops that go over and experience it and come back, a lot of them are very vocal against it. You have the actual money that they're spending towards a message of peace. They're putting their money where their mouth is. We have, every piece of evidence would show that the American people are kind of, even in the polling and so on. So I'm just, and no matter how much Fox News and even CNN and MSNBC, these guys are all for, but it's just under their certain condition or criteria, or you're not doing it right, And I have to ask, what do you think we're up? Because first thing you have to change the culture. First, you have to change the mind of the people. First, you have to do things like ComeHomeAmerica.us and say, look, here's a good argument. You need water cooler ammunition. Be against. Well, here's some material for you. But you get to that point, and then you're going, okay, and we still have it. They're still passing this. They're still extending the debt limit. They're still, able to enabling this. They're still having the Federal Reserve print more money. They're still buying the debt. They're still to wage more war and killing people. What are we up against? Something is stopping the will of the people in this democracy or the republic or whatever you want to call it. You know what it is? It's not ours. It's not us. It's not representative of the people. It's something else. And I need, from your perspective, what the heck is it that we're up against, that we're fighting this against?
Well, I can think of, if you want, first of all, it is the military-industrial complex. There's a lot of money to be made, and, we spend, we spend it on the whole so-called national security complex, probably $1.2 trillion a year. Our GDP is $15 trillion, so 1.3 out of 15 is a handsome piece of a pretty big gross domestic product. So that's a big financial interest. I think also there are people who, at the top of the pyramid here in the imperial city, they're so important. They're lords of the world. There's that power is very attractive to some people. Without that, Washington's not such a hotshot place. There are foreign powers that can manipulate us. And this has happened in the past. Any empire can be manipulated by a junior power. It happened in the 50s when we got involved in the Korean War because of the so-called China lobby on Taiwan that had lost the Revolutionary War there. They manipulated us. They were behind a lot of, and even the Vatican then was very gung-ho for the United States to fight communism all over the world. We should have never been involved in that. There's Israel plays the same role now. Israel has tremendous clout and wants us to be on a war footing. And the neocons, who are very pro-Israel by and large, were a major factor in getting us into Iraq. They're a major factor in getting us into Libya. If they have their way, they're going to get us into Iran,
If
too.
they have their way, we're going to Iran. We'll talk about more when we come back here on Declare Your Independence with me, Ernest Hancock, and Dr. John Walsh, one of the authors of ComeHomeAmerica.us. We'll be right back.